Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Brothers and sisters out there, I want to share with you a story. So this is about a brother. He's given his consent and he wants this to be known to basically the whole world. And subhanAllah, it's very courageous of him. So the story begins that this young man lives in America. He basically had a perfect life, mashallah. He recently got married, he landed a really good job, and after about a year or so, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala blessed them with a baby girl who they named Aya. But subhanAllah, his wife, she ended up having a very bad car accident, and it was decreed, subhanAllah, that she would lose her life through that accident. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala have mercy on her. Now that brother, he took the death of his wife very, very badly. And he was basically beside himself, inconsolable. And as the days went by, his grief just increased. And he said that whenever I would look at my daughter, I would see my wife, and that would just make me upset all over again. So what happened is that he didn't really have much family around him at that time. Most of his family were in other countries, so he only had his sister. And he found his sister and he said to her, listen, I want you to take care of my daughter because I just can't do it anymore. And so his sister came and took his daughter away, and he thought that would make him feel better, and it did, because he wouldn't remember his wife as much. But now he felt like he had lost everything. First his wife and now his daughter. So he spiraled into depression. And what happened is that these depressive thoughts, they made him very bitter towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And he began to ask, why Allah did you do this to me? And what happened is that he actually left salah. He stopped praying altogether. And of course that just made him feel even worse. And then he began to have suicidal thoughts. I mean, this is really getting crazy. And he began to think about taking his own life. And at that moment, he decided that, you know what, the only way I can deal with this is to turn to some kind of drugs or alcohol. So he started to drink. And he drank and drank and drank. And though when he was drunk, he would forget about these things, when he became sober, it would all come flooding back to him. Until the day came that he decided to take his life. He sat in the bathtub and he was determined to do what he had to do. But before he did, he opened up his phone and he started to scroll through the messages between him and his wife. And as he's scrolling through the messages, he goes up to one message where there's a kind of a funny conversation that takes place. His wife texts him and says something along the lines of, you know what, I don't know what I would do without you. I think I might die of depression. But then again, thinking about being with you in paradise forever would definitely be more depressing. And so he's like, lol, and that's really funny of you, and yeah, that's a really scary thought about having to be with each other forever and ever and ever. But then he made a dua and he said, oh Allah, I ask you to grant me a place with my wife and my children and their children's children in Jannat al-Firdaus al-A'la. And he said Ameen, and she said Ameen. And he's like, when I read that message, I just broke down and I realized that, you know what, this isn't right. So he came out of the bathtub, and in the bathroom he fell onto the ground in sajda, and then he began to cry uncontrollably to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He began to ask forgiveness for all the negative things that he had said about Allah and all the bad thoughts he had had about him. And he asked Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to reunite him with his wife. And then he got up and he said, I made wudu. And I can't remember the last time I made wudu. And then I went into my bedroom and I prayed 2 rak'ah. And I begged Allah in sajda, oh Allah, bring peace and tranquility into my heart again. Give me happiness. And he said when he finished that salah, he realized what he needed to do. He found his sister and he said, you know what, I want to take the care of my daughter back into my hands. Bring her around this evening. And when she came and he took his daughter, he never thought about his wife like he did before. And things began to get better and better. He began to pray regularly. And then he turned up to the masjid for Salatul Jum'ah on Friday. And he went to the Imam and he told the Imam this whole story. And he said, you know what, one day I want to share my story with other people. So the Imam, who's now telling the story on behalf of this brother, he says that one day he came back to the masjid and said, let me give a little reminder to people. And so the Imam allowed him to, and he told the story to the congregation. Everyone was in tears, subhanAllah. And basically the story ends that this brother, now he likes to go to different mosques in America, in his state, giving inspirational reminders to people and telling people that hope is one of the most powerful things that you could possibly have in your life. And you know what? It is true, brothers and sisters. And what the brother thought about being with his wife and family in Jannah is not something which is made up, something that you hear in films. It is something mentioned in the Quran. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, فَأَمَّا مَنْ أُوتِيَ كِتَابَهُ بِيَمِينِهِ فَسَوْفَ يُحَاسَبُ حِسَابًا يَسِيرًا وَيَنْقَلِبُ إِلَى أَهْلِهِ مَسْرُورًا. That those who will be given their book in their right hand, may Allah make us from those people, that they will be given an easy accounting. And then they will return to their families masruran, which means in a state of long-term happiness. This is how Allah describes it in the Quran. And the scholars, they say that the member of the family that achieved the highest place in paradise, every other member will be upgraded to the highest place. Subhanallah. This is truly amazing. And this is why it's important to read the Quran, to be able to give your heart something to hope in, and also to gain the help of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that every person who has lost a loved one, that He gives them that comfort and the contentment in their heart, and inshallah they will be with them in Jannah, inshallah, by the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Jazakumullah khairan, barakallahu feekum.